your house was destroyed. It doesn't cover hurt feelings, and they said that the damages were under the deductible.
Welcome to a special episode of Law Unpacked. I'm your host, Sean DeVries, and today we're diving into a deep issue that's affecting many of you, Hurricane Helene. With homes and businesses across Florida damaged, people are navigating the complicated process of filing insurance claims. To help guide you, we have two special guests today. First, I'm excited to welcome Todd Frederick, an experienced property insurance attorney with the Merlin Law Group. They specialize in hurricane-related claims. Todd, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Sean.
And joining us later will be Youdell, a licensed public adjuster who will share insights on how public adjusters can help maximize insurance settlements after disasters like the one we're facing now. We have a lot to cover, so let's go ahead and get started. Todd, we'll start with you. Tell me, what led you to start practicing in property law, or specifically property insurance law?
I began practicing property insurance law right after a couple big hurricanes hit Jacksonville. Hurricane Matthew and Hurricane Irma both hit Jacksonville in 2016, 2017. They really devastated Jacksonville, and they hit throughout the state. And that's what got me to begin working on hurricane claims. And I not only do hurricane claims, I also do flood, fire, any controversy where the insurance company has not paid the amount to bring the homeowner back to their pre-loss condition.
For insurance claims, especially as what many of our viewers are going to be filing today or in the near future, what do you find that's real interesting about those or different than your common fire, flood, or other property insurance claims?
Well, the common thing that I see is the insurance company will a lot of times come out, inspect the property, and when I say have their blinders on, they will go out to a property that obviously needs a new roof. But they will send out their adjuster, and their adjuster will say that the roof is repairable. And most of the time when they say that, the roof actually isn't repairable. So that's where the first argument begins. And most of the time they do that to a homeowner who has generally a 2% deductible on the hurricane. So, if you got a $200,000 house, you got a $4,000 deductible. They'll say that the damages were $3,000, so they don't owe anything. So at that point, the homeowner reaches out to a public adjuster or an attorney to try to help them negotiate this with the insurance company.
And we're definitely going to get into that a little bit more in detail, especially with the hurricane deductible versus your normal deductible, and what a lot of consumers don't even know, which baffles me that. Insurance companies can even do this, but we'll get into that here in a little bit. Now, Todd, in full disclosure, I've known you for a long time, and prior to me knowing you, you were a military guy, so you have some experience in the Navy. And what brought that to, or what is your Navy? Why has your Navy experience helped you with doing these property insurance claims?
Nothing too directly. It's more the military and the Navy specifically has a real focus on attention to detail. And that attention to detail is what I brought to law school, and I bring to these claims. And it really helps. I have to analyze a 70-page policy and locate the coverage, find the coverage, evaluate how that applies to our specific claim. And, the attention to detail is very important because these policies are very complicated. And they're very complex in the way that they're written.
I'm going to now show us a video. And for those that are watching, the sun's just come up a few hours ago, and we're really starting to get some footage of the damage and destruction that Helene has done. So let me go ahead and roll this first clip.
Wow. Here it comes. And this ocean is not letting up right now.
They're not letting up.
Hurricane Helene is on it.
Yeah.
For those dealing with this damage, what are the immediate steps that they should be taking immediately after, they're able, where it's safe for them to go back into their residence?
So the first thing that they want to do is immediately report it to the insurance company. There are some post-loss obligations that all policies have, and number one is to promptly report the claim. The second thing that they want to do is what we call mitigate damages. That means they need to stop the damage from getting worse. The most common way to do that is to put a tarp on the roof. And that's the best idea and the quickest idea. And that doesn't do anything to permanently cover up any of the damages. And it allows for the insurance inspector to come and view the damages in their original form. Another thing that they can do is, you can go to Home Depot, pay $10 and get a bucket of roofing tar. It's $10 for a 1-gallon bucket. And you can take that and, if you've got a leak around a chimney or something, you can just paint that over that, and that'll also stop the water from coming out. So those are the best ways and the fastest and cheapest ways to do that mitigation, which is required by the insurance company because the insurance company is responsible for the initial damages, but you have to mitigate, and your failure to mitigate makes it to where the insurance company isn't going to owe for further damages that you should have mitigated.
So just to make sure I'm understanding you correctly, if you don't mitigate your damages, the insurance company is not going to pay for any more damage that's sustained. Is that accurate?
That is correct. So let's say you have your roof demolished and water has intruded into your house. You have a reasonable time, which isn't defined in the policy, but you have a reasonable amount of time to get a tarp up there. Now, after a hurricane, when the workers are stretched very thin, it may take you 2 weeks or 3 weeks to get a tarp up there. And the insurance company is going to owe for the damages that happened during that time. But after a reasonable time has passed, if you haven't put a tarp up there, any further damages, they're not going to be responsible for covering.
So going back, this happens. What's the most important thing for potential lost payees or claimants? What's the most important thing that they should document?
Documentation is very important, and it starts before you have a claim. If there is a hurricane or a named storm or a storm heading your way, you should take pictures. You should take pictures of your roof from the ground. You should also take pictures of the ceilings throughout your house to show that there was no pre-existing damages, because those can become very important when it comes down to it. If we have a jury trial, the insurance company will often say, "Oh, these damages were there beforehand. These are pre-existing," especially if this is a case where the homeowner had a claim 5 years ago, or even past that. The insurance company will subpoena the records from the previous owner's insurance company. And if the previous owner had an insurance claim 10 years ago where they had some ceiling damage, the insurance company is going to try to say that the damage that we're seeing now is from that old claim and it was pre-existing. So it's very important to take pictures of the interior and the exterior of the house before any storm.
Now, I heard you talk about the ceiling. Obviously, we've talked about the roof. Is there any areas specifically that they should focus on when documenting?
What I mentioned is the most important. The roof, I wouldn't suggest anybody go on their roof, but it wouldn't be a bad idea to climb a ladder and take a few pictures of the roof from a ladder. Take pictures of the soffit, the portion of the overhang underneath. Take pictures of that. Take pictures of the gutters to show that there's no hail damage or anything like that. And then, of course, take pictures of the ceilings. That's very important.
Well, I'm going to show our next clip. We'll dive into this a little bit more. For anyone dealing with damage, what does the standard homeowner's policy typically cover?
So the typical policy covers the cost to bring the home back into its pre-loss condition. It would also cover what we call additional living expenses. So if your damages are bad enough to where you have to leave the house to have the work done, the insurance policy will cover your increase in the amount you're paying for food. They'll cover the cost of a reasonable accommodations. They're not going to pay for a four-star hotel, but a reasonable hotel. If you've got a very serious damage that's going to take 3 months, they would pay the cost for you to do a short-term rental or short-term lease.
It seems like they're covering a decent amount, but we're seeing a lot of this storm surge of waters rising. Is there anything that policies don't cover, anything that's excluded that could be part of this claim?
That's a great question. And to answer it, everyone that is in a flood area needs to have flood insurance, because flood specifically is not included as a covered peril by the insurance company. So everyone needs a separate flood policy. Most of those are issued by the government, and they're not very expensive. And they're usually $150,000 or $250,000, and they cover rising water. Anytime you have rising water, that's just something that's not going to be covered by the insurance policy, and they fight all that very, very hard. So
what you're saying is that if any of this storm surge caused significant damage and a client or a claimant did not have a flood policy, they're not going to get anything from their homeowner's policy that they've been paying for years?
No, that's not what I'm saying, but it does get very complicated. So the flood policy is designed to cover everything that floodwater touched if you've got rising water. Anything above the flood line, the homeowner's insurance would then pick up. But let's say flood waters rose 1 foot. Let's say the walls don't have any damage other than the floodwater. Well, you're going to have to replace that wall. But only the flood caused the damage to that wall. So even though you've got to replace the whole wall, the flood insurance is the only one responsible. Your homeowner's insurance isn't going to be responsible for that wall. And it's the same way with every part of your house. Your homeowner's insurance is only responsible for the damages that have occurred above the flood line. And those damages must also have been caused by the storm.
What about personal contents? If it's below the flood line, that's the same. It'd fall under the flood policy. And if it's above that, it would be your homeowner's policy?
Yes, that's the exact same thing. And so you need a good homeowner's policy and a good flood policy. And where this starts to get very complicated, let's say your kitchen is on the first floor, your floodwaters come in, they ruin the bottom cabinetry. Well, we all know that all of us in the business know you can't just replace the bottom cabinets, because you're never going to find matching cabinets for the top. The top cabinets are not going to be covered by the flood. But on the flip side of that, the homeowner's insurance isn't going to cover those cabinets either. So that's where we get into a problem. So now sometimes we can get the flood to cover the top cabinets because of the matching. The problem is most flood policies cap out at $250,000, and you would be very surprised how fast $250,000 goes when there's a flood. If you got a standard like 4-bedroom house that's a 1-story and you have a 1-foot flood, that $250,000 is going to be exhausted long before you get to those upper cabinets.
That's astounding to hear. It's something that's new to me, and I think our viewers are going to find a lot of value in that. Let me ask, what else is in the homeowner's policy that a client or a claimant may misunderstand about hurricane coverage?
There are 3 or 4 coverages in a policy. So then they're not all the same, but in general, coverage A is the main structure of the home. Coverage B is what we call other structures. That would be like a garage that is not attached, or fencing. Then coverage C or D would be your personal property, and one will be personal property, and one will be loss of use or what we were talking about earlier with staying somewhere else in like a hotel or something. A lot of people find is their coverage B is only 10% of their coverage A. So you got a $250,000 house, you've only got $25,000 in coverage B. You might have a detached garage that's worth $40,000, or you may have a pool that's worth $50,000. And a lot of people are underinsured on that coverage B. And another thing, here in Florida, pool cages are a big thing. Pool enclosures, a lot of times those are excluded. And then when you buy the policy, you need to ask your agent to add an endorsement to cover that pool cage. I just had a situation the other day where my client had a $55,000 pool, and her coverage B was only $5,000, $5,500. And her pool was completely destroyed. And there's nothing I can do. I can't get them to cover and pay more than policy limits. So, finding out if you have things that would land under coverage B or something else, and getting that proper amount of coverage for that is very important.
Yeah, it seems like there's a lot of misconfusion on how much is covered, what will be covered. So really doing the due diligence ahead of time to make sure the policies are in place. And maybe on a future episode, we'll bring in an insurance agent and have them go through that a little bit more in detail. But I think this is great knowledge that you really have to read that policy.
Yeah, I can just tell you from my own personal experience. I just recently got a new insurance because my last insurance had tripled their price. And looking through there, I thought my pool cage was going to be covered under coverage B for other structures, and there actually turned out to be an exclusion for pool cages. So then I had to add additional coverage just to cover that pool cage.
Well, man, it's lucky that you're an attorney and you read these in and out. I hope that some of our viewers can really take this serious to protect themselves in the event of a disaster, to really make sure that they read their policy and make sure that they're covered for what they think they're going to be covered for. I'm going to transition here for a moment, and we're going to play the next clip.
I don't know if you can see the dangling power lines kind of swaying back and forth. This is massive.
Man, that's crazy. A tin roof just laying there in the road. And that's going to be covered under your normal insurance policy or homeowners, not the flood, correct?
Yeah. If a roof comes off, that would be something that would be covered. I tend to assume that a tin roof is probably going to be something that was on a garage, a detached garage. So again, we've got to look back to that coverage B and make sure that your garage has the proper amount of coverage.
So now that we've had this name storm, we see these roofs blowing off houses, and they have to make this claim. Talk to me about the hurricane deductible. What's the difference between a hurricane deductible and your standard policy deductible?
Most insurance policies have a deductible that you negotiate when you are buying the policy. Generally, they're about $1,000 or $2,000. If it's an older policy, you may have a $500 deductible, but there is a separate and different deductible for hurricane. And that is also something that you can negotiate with your agent when you're buying it. The most common deductible that I see is 2%. So again, if you got a $200,000 house, that's a $4,000 deductible, which means they don't have to pay a penny unless your damages are above $4,000. I have seen in the extreme, and I can't believe this is even legal. I have a client whose deductible is 10%, and his home is insured for $300,000, so $30,000 deductible, and that brings me into a point that I should make, and I want everybody to know. You should never over insure your home. If your home is worth $200,000, insure it for $200,000. They're going to offer you $300,000 in insurance. That's because if they give you $300,000 in insurance, you now have a $6,000 hurricane deductible. You will never, ever get policy limits. You will never use your policy limits unless your house burns to the ground. So it is exceedingly rare, like 1 in 10,000 or probably less, where the insurance company determines that it's a total loss and pays out the entire thing. So you definitely, you don't want to overinsure it because again, your deductible is a percentage of the amount that you've insured it for. Now you can't dramatically underinsure it. There may be penalties if your house isn't insured for at least 80% of its value. But as long as you have a reasonable amount, they're not going to give you that penalty. And you just want as little insurance total as possible. I've been doing this for a long time. You know, the average $350,000 house has damages that total, you know, $40,000-$50,000 if it's the roof and a little bit of interior. If it's significant interior, it's still under $200,000 in damages on a $300,000 house. So you can see there, you're never going to get to where you have damages that are close to those policy limits unless the house burns to the ground or unless it's swept away by a hurricane. But even in that case, you're dealing with flood. You're probably going to be dealing with flood insurance before you're dealing with your homeowner's insurance.
And just to confirm, the percentage, so if you have a 2% deductible, that's based on the amount of the policy, or is that based on the current appraised amount of the house?
No, that's the amount of the policy.
That's great information. Now that we've covered some of the basics of starting a claim, I'd like to introduce our other guest today, Harry Youdell. Harry Youdell is a public adjuster and has been working in this industry for over 10 years. Harry, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Sean.
I'm going to go ahead and roll our next clip, and then we'll have some discussion based around that. So here we are. We've had this hurricane disaster happen, and you have a claim coming because you have storm damage. Everybody has to have the same things at this point. This is a natural disaster. What if they don't have a tarp to cover your roof?
So this is back to the mitigation that I was discussing earlier. You know, if you go to Home Depot and Lowe's, Harbor Freight, they may all be out of tarps. There is a service provided by the government in a area where a natural disaster has been declared, where FEMA will actually come and provide you tarps and tarp your roof for you at no charge. And I would definitely suggest that anyone that needs a tarp, go ahead and contact FEMA. That's the best way to go. You will see people driving around in vehicles with out-of-state contractor licenses, out-of-state signs on the side, asking, going door to door, asking if you need tarps. It's not necessarily true that all of them are bad and trying to take advantage, but there are some bad actors out there. And you know, a $50 tarp from Home Depot, they may charge $5,000 for that tarp.
So we've got kind of 3 points that I want to talk. One, we're going to provide the number for FEMA in case you need to get on their list to get your roof tarped. Number two, and I'm assuming, Todd, that that if they're a couple weeks booked, that's if it's FEMA, that's a reasonable amount of time. Is that accurate with regards to mitigation?
It is, but and the amount of time that is so-called reasonable under the policy is dependent on the situation. You know, if Home Depot has no tarps, FEMA is going to be 2 to 3 weeks out. You know, you've done all you can. That should be a reasonable time where if it went to court, the jury should find that you've done everything that you could reasonably do. But on the flip side of that, you don't want that water coming in your house and you don't want that mold in your house. So if there's any way that you can scrounge up a tarp and get it up there, or go to Home Depot and get a bucket of roofing tar and fix something, I absolutely recommend that. Even though the damages would have been covered, you don't want that water in your house because you don't want that mold in your house making your family sick. So mitigation isn't just for the policy, it's also for you.
And then the last point you're trying to make is the assignment of benefits. Specifically state, what is an assignment of benefits and why is that bad?
So an assignment of benefits, it's not always 100% bad. the way it works, the way it has worked in the past, is you would have, let's say this is above board, a reputable contractor. A reputable contractor comes to your house, your roof is completely trashed, and you need to get this work done. This contractor will accept your deductible, so you give over your 2% deductible to them, and then they do the work without being paid any other money, and then they then directly bill the insurance company for that work. Now, if the insurance company doesn't end up paying, you owe this person whatever their bill is, but it's not always a bad thing. But when it comes to things like mitigation, like tarps, they shouldn't be billing a huge amount. It should be a reasonable amount. And I don't want to confuse the difference between a direction to pay and an assignment of benefits. An assignment of benefits gives that contractor your claim. You are assigning your rights under the claim to that contractor, and they're stepping into your shoes. A direction to pay is fine to sign. There's no problem with that. And that just says, hey, insurance company, this person did this work for me. I'm asking you to pay them directly so you don't have to pay me and then I pay them.
So what I think I hear you saying is that, one, they need to review a contract should they sign one to ensure that there's not an assignment of benefits, but it's okay if there's a direction to pay.
That's my opinion. I believe that is the best thing to do.
Going back to the assignment of benefits, you should not hesitate to ask someone for if their contract has that language. Is that accurate when you're doing your due diligence on hiring somebody?
It should. You should, but it should be abundantly obvious. There should be a large, bold, underlined heading that says assignment of insurance benefits. And if there is one, I would steer clear of that.
Harry, so tell me, what are some common damages that are often overlooked by the insurance company adjuster that you find, and how do you spot them?
Well, there's a difference between talking about the roof and the damages from leaks coming out of the roof. That's wind damage, and flood damage. So when we're talking about roofs, you have a lot of issues that you have to know about. How old is the roof? Does the roof have damages to its flashing? And the flashing needs to be replaced along with the shingles. That's very important to know. The other thing is, what's damaged underneath the roof? Do we have signs of damage to the sheeting, which is your plywood that the shingles are nailed to? Do we have broken trusses that are in the roof because something struck your roof during the storm? So you need to know that the structure is a system, and it starts with your framing and it goes all the way out to your shingles.
And so I'm sure right now the insurance companies are getting flooded with claims. How does a public adjuster help mitigate delays from the insurance company getting their adjuster out there?
Because there's really time limits on what you're going to do, and you want to make sure that you're working within the time limits, which again is your post-loss obligations that Todd was referring to earlier. So getting your damages properly identified, properly estimated, and getting that to the insurance company as quickly as possible is going to benefit you greatly.
Todd, we're going to dive deeper into this in a few moments, but at what point should a homeowner call an attorney to get them involved?
So what I recommend is you file a claim, the insurance company inspects, they send back a letter saying either they're going to cover it or not. If the letter that they send says that they are not going to fully indemnify you, fully put you back in your pre-loss condition, I think that is the time when you should go ahead and call the attorney right away. And I just wanted to add one thing to what Harry was saying a minute ago. He said it's very important to take pictures after. It is extremely important to take pictures after, especially of your roof and your ceiling, because if you have a picture of your ceiling taken the day after the storm, the insurance company is not going to be able to say that you failed to mitigate and that those damages got worse. You'll have documented proof that the damages to your ceiling were that bad before, and you didn't fail to mitigate. And the roof, it is so important to take pictures after, because especially in Florida, this hurricane just happened. They could have another hurricane in 2 weeks, and now there's a question of when did the damages happen. So it's very important to take those pictures of the roof immediately after the storm, in case there's another storm coming, because that happens all too often.
So we heard about when to get an attorney involved. At what point do we get the public adjuster involved?
What an attorney doesn't do, what we can't do, we're not construction experts. We don't do estimates. We don't, although we will meet with an adjuster at the property and point out the damages, we're not trained, and we're not the experts to know that there is hidden damage that should be included. That the public adjuster has that training and knowledge, and they will be able to show the insurance company of those damages that aren't readily visible.
Harry, is there any other information that you'd like to add?
Well, I'd like to add that, if you have a public adjuster, the public adjuster is also going to help you to know when to get the attorney involved, which the sooner the better. If you are getting pushback from the insurance company, the pushback is a total signal that somebody else needs to be involved for you.
So I think what we've heard, kind of to sum it up, is that when the insurance company gives you a pushback is the time to get professional help. Moving forward, so we've talked about the first step, call the insurance company. Second step, they're going to send out an adjuster. Make sure you're prepared for that adjuster. Third, the insurance company is going to make a settlement offer at some point. What should a homeowner look for in that settlement offer? How do they know that it's too low and maybe that they should involve a professional?
Well, first of all, the first thing is, if you have damages, you may not know what it'll take to get the repair done. But once you talk to a contractor and he says, no, this is more than the $10,000 that they paid you, this is going to be $30,000. There's a clear indication there that you need professional help. And the contractor is really not in a position to do that for you. You need a licensed public adjuster to handle that, who can get that settled for you.
What are some important things for business owners to look out for when they're dealing with claims?
All right. So the first thing that they have to do, and this goes for the homeowners as well. We're talking about contents. When the flood comes in, there's physical damage to the building or the dwelling, but then there's contents. And the first thing you need to do is you need to sort out what's damaged and what's not damaged, and get pictures of everything that's damaged so that you can itemize the value. Receipts are important. If you bought a couch and it was 3 years old, you don't have the receipt, you want to be able to go online, you have pictures, go online and find something like it so that you can show the value of that, because contents are a very important part of flood insurance and for all buildings. And that's very important. And so the next thing is you're going to take care of the dwelling. You're going to get the picture or the building, and you're going to get the pictures of the actual damage to the building as well. So the other thing you want to do is, depending on how high the water got, you want to, and what your walls are made of, you want to prepare that you're going to get your drywall taken out. If they're exterior walls, they're going to have insulation behind them. You want to get that out so that the building can dry. It's very important that the building dry as soon as possible to stop any production of mold.
Yeah, so we talked earlier about the 3 coverages in a homeowner's property claim. Is there any additional coverage for business owners to look for, especially when it comes to loss of use? Obviously, their store or their business is now going to be closed down for a certain period of time while they're fixing and repairing that.
Correct. And so the loss of use is very important. And that there again, documentation is what you really need for that. You have receipts for your daily business, what you take in, and what your expenses are. And you need to be able to produce that so that can be adjusted for you. There are also time limits on that, on businesses, so many days before it can kick in. That's all in the policy.
Gentlemen, what are some signs, and this question is for both of you, what are some signs that a claim isn't progressing as it should?
From my point of view, so it's very hard especially right after the storm, to be able to talk to the insurance company. So you do everything by through the emails, but then it doesn't go anywhere. So you actually have to have contact with them, and that's very difficult to get them on the phone. You should have an adjuster, a field adjuster you're able to work with, and they change these guys out regularly. So you start off with one gentleman or lady, and 3 weeks later you have somebody else, and 2 weeks later you have somebody else. That's a clear sign that this is going nowhere, and you need a different level of help.
That brings up a good point. I would recommend anyone that has an insurance claim to get a spiral notebook and keep that notebook and write down in there every single time that they telephone or email the insurance company, who they talked to, how long did they talk to them, and a brief synopsis of what you discussed. And keep that timeline of phone calls and emails and dates and what was discussed. Just keep that spiral notebook and keep a log of every communication that you have.
Well, that brings up a good point, Todd. Talk to me a little bit about what is bad faith in Florida when it comes to insurance law and specifically property insurance law.
Okay, bad faith is when the insurance company has breached their duty of fair dealing with you. There's a lot of confusion about what this covers. It doesn't cover hurt feelings. What it does cover is, let's say you've got a claim where your house was destroyed. Your estimate is for $470,000, and they said that the damages were under the deductible. In Florida, it's what we call bifurcated. First, we have to win the underlying breach of contract suit before we can even talk about bad faith. So in that example that I just said, let's say we didn't reach a settlement, we went to trial, jury verdict for the plaintiff. When that is done, then we would amend our complaint and add a count 2 for bad faith. It's almost, it's the same lawsuit, it's the same suit number, but it's basically a new lawsuit starting over. You have to do bad faith discovery, but what you're seeking is 2 to 3 times the amount of the underpayment as their penalty for not doing what they should have done. It's a punitive action. It's meant to discourage them from doing this to other people in the future. But the important thing to know is you first have to win a jury verdict. There were other ways before, but the laws have now changed. So really, you have to have a jury verdict, or you have to have an arbitration award that says that you win. And then once that underlying breach of contract is taken care of, that's when we begin to talk about bad faith.
Oh, there goes.
Out safely. We've heard again and again you don't want to walk into that water for a lot of different reasons. Liza talking about snakes and wildlife, but it can also just knock you off your feet, and we know not everyone maybe is in a position to be able to safely do that.
We just saw all these submersible houses that are underwater. It's going to take a long time before this gets cleaned up. Both of you, what are some advice to homeowners to help document once they've got this cleaned up? What should they do next? Once their policy's been paid, their home's been fixed, what are the next steps?
Well, their next step is to get the work completed, and they have an estimate, or they have, that the insurance company has paid off of, or they have a settlement that they paid off of, and it's very important that they get a hold of get a hold of a Florida licensed general contractor to do the work for them. And in other states, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, you want to make sure you get a reputable contractor to help you. The other thing is, you're going to, sometimes materials are hard to get. So you want to be very proactive in knowing what the situation is with materials, so that you're able to get everything done in a timely manner when things are going to be available for you to get them done.
Todd, Harry, we know people are going to be hurting from this storm. Is there any, and we've covered a lot today, is there anything that we didn't cover that you feel our viewers and our listeners should know?
Well, the one thing that I would like to bring up is that public adjusters do a very good job of documenting. If you have a public adjuster and he's able to move your claim along, that's very good. But one of the things, value of a public adjuster is if it needs to go to the attorney, it's very well established with everything necessary for the attorney to be able to move it forward and fill in whatever might be necessary in addition to that. So I think that, public adjusters can work hand in hand with the attorneys if necessary. It all comes down to that pushback. When there's pushback, you need to get the additional leverage of having an attorney.
Well, both great knowledge and great information. For any viewer or listener, how can they contact you, Harry?
They can contact me by email at Youdell, it's HYOUDELL @yahoo.com. And my phone number, you can call me directly, is 954-889-4487.
And Todd, how can future clients or prospective clients, those that need help, and really this is what this episode's about, is people are hurting, people need help. How do they contact you to get that help?
I guess I didn't really introduce myself too well. I'm Todd Frederick. I'm with Merlin Law Group. Merlin Law Group is one of, if not the best, property insurance firms in Florida. The property insurance is the only thing we do. We only do first-party property insurance and third-party property insurance. We've got over 50 attorneys. We have a Jacksonville office, a Tampa office, and a West Palm office. We also have offices in 7 other states, in Louisiana, Texas, Illinois, Oklahoma, Colorado, California, Jersey, and Georgia. Anyway, my contact is my name, T Frederick, so TFREDERICK at merlinlawgroup.com. So MERLINLAWGROUP.com. And I will go ahead and give you my phone number. It's 904-657-9809. Feel free to give me a call. I'm happy to talk anytime. And if I don't answer, just leave me a message and I'll call you back very soon.
If you give either one of these gentlemen a call, please mention that you saw them in Law Unpacked. What's important to know while you're going through this difficult time, you don't have to do this process alone. Help is always available, and there are people out there that will stand by your side and fight these big insurance companies. Thanks for tuning in for the special Hurricane Helene edition of Law Unpacked. I'm Sean DeVries. Take care of yourself.